The entire profession needs to absolutely adapt and get ahead, or else it'll be left behind to a detrimental level. But you want to be a CFO, right? So I was like, yeah. And I was like, he said, this is a route to CFO. I distinctly remember sitting in his office and I said to him, no disrespect, but you're not a CFO. Can I ask the actual CFO if this is a route to his role?
Did you always want to be a CFO?
No. This is a public company, FTSE 250, that didn't have anybody qualified on tax. So I just casually started doing all the tax comps. I was casually getting people from the AP team asking me, is this VAT rate right? And I'm sitting there going like, I've literally never worked a day in tax in my life. I just have a qualification. I'd love to get paid more. I don't need it, because actually the answer is you can be ahead of tax, but you need someone who knows where the bodies are buried. Or you either go dig them up or bury them deeper. That's basically it.
At this point, you had gone, I want to be a CFO. I'm ticking these things off, or it was just...
Anything I do it so I can get to the top. I'm really impatient, because impatience allows you to go, how can this be faster? I'm a CFO of a division and it looks like on my LinkedIn, I'm like amazing, but I'm actually like going to my head company and getting my budget signed off for 20 million and then I don't have to worry about it. Like that's kind of, I don't want to do that. I want everything.
Why?
Why? Because
Vineta, good morning.
hey, how's it going?
Good, very good, thank you. On a miserable last day of January today, flown by. Can you tell us who you are and what you do, please?
So I'm Vineta. I'm Irish, and I am the Group CFO of a business called Rohlik Group. So I'm an accountant.
Excellent. And for those who don't know Rohlik, can you give us a bit of context? Yeah,
so Rohlik are an online European grocery business. So in the UK, the best comparison would be maybe Ocado.com. So we're an online grocery business, an e-commerce business in 5 countries in Europe. We're currently at about 1 billion revenue, and we do same day groceries. So you can order your kind of €100 basket within 3 hours from our website, our app. It's delivered through our automated warehouses and it's delivered to your house. So effectively that kind of comparison.
Brilliant. And tell us about your journey to becoming a CFO. And did you always want to be a CFO?
No. No, but that's a long story. That's a long, like, you're going to my psyche of my childhood story.
Yeah.
Let's not get into that.
Go for it. Tell us from the start.
Okay, right. Okay, cool. So when I was 5, I wanted to be a doctor. Now I'm brown, so you would think that stereotypically someone in my family, extended family, cousins or extended family is probably in the medical field. They aren't. So my parents had no idea how I got this notion that I wanted to be a doctor. So I just had this idea. I wanted to be a cardiologist. That was it. So I studied for it. I, made sure I picked my A levels, sciences, all of it in Ireland. So it was the Leaving Cert. And then through that time, in Ireland, I'm from Limerick, and the University of Limerick didn't offer medicine. So Galway, Dublin and Cork offered medicine, but Limerick didn't. And I was very young going to university. I was 16. So my parents were like, they're going, we're not sending our only daughter to Dublin, Cork or Limerick or Galway to study medicine. Perhaps revise your choices to maybe 15 minutes of the house, which is the University of Limerick. And I was like, so it was just it was an interesting time. And my dad was trying to convince me as to why I shouldn't do medicine. He was like, but you're so good at talking to people. Like, you don't want to be like sitting and learning for life. Like, it's a life learning career. Why would you do that? And I was like, because I want to help people. And he goes, yeah, but like, do you really want to do that? And I was like, yes. And he goes, I don't think you want to do that. So basically after a period of time, we got to a point where I was like, okay, I'll refine my choices to Limerick. So I said, right, I'll do industrial sciences. And I wanted to do science. I was super nerdy, right? And my dad was like, do you really see yourself sitting in a lab? And I was like, yes. I was like, yes. And he goes, your personality isn't one. Like, look at your personality. Like, you're really, you're really out there and you're really good at talking and stuff. And I was like, he said, I think you're more like a business kind of person. And I was like, okay. So basically, so I did business. And it was an interesting time because obviously I was young. 16 going to university is very young. And so that's why I chose to do business. In the background, I I was also a piano player. So I started playing the piano when I was 3. And so at the same time, and I never was going to do music because I knew then there wasn't enough money in music for me. So, so my mother would say, you know, when you're married and you start having children, you can stay at home and teach piano from home while you take care of the kids, and you can bring extra money in. And I was like, I mean, I know you might want grandkids, but that's not happening, right? But thank you for letting me know the path. But I never was going to do music. So while I did my degree in business in the University of Limerick, which is actually one of the best business schools in the country in Ireland, I also did a diploma to teach music because I was really interested, and I was teaching music on the side, which was really, really fantastic and actually quite shaping for how I am as a leader today. So I did my degree in accounting and finance, and I was. Nightlife was not fun because when you're 16 on campus in Ireland, you get turned away from the pubs at 6 p.m. without an ID over 18. So I started applying my experience of my education to real life examples. So I was building websites. I was kind of bored. I was making this money off piano. So I went to my dad and I said, I want to create a trading account. I want to try and trade some calls and puts and stuff. And so he created an account. I put the money in there. So, you know, this kind of thing I was doing. And I learned, I made a bunch of money. It was just, you know, I was just applying. I always have this mind of applying knowledge to things. And so then I realized that I then did a placement year, my sandwich year in KPMG in tax. And that was amazing because it was like, because I was obviously doing a degree in business and accounting and finance. And that was great because tax was like mathematical. Like you would always have an answer. It doesn't matter what your opinion is, the book says something, and I loved it, right? So I came back and I was like, I'm going to do tax. And then, and that's what I'm going to go train in. And then I was talking to my dad about it, and my dad was like, it's very narrow. And I was like, do you have an opinion about everything? Like, can you like not have an opinion like for like 5 seconds, please? So he was like, it kind of makes sense to do like a broader exposure. And it's quite important because it really helped. Because again, I was 19, right, at the time. And I was like, okay, cool. So that coupled with my experience in my random side trading that I was doing from my bedroom, I was basically envisaging, Vineta Bajaj hedge fund, in the future. So I basically went and trained in financial services in KPMG because financial services and funds was actually quite a large industry in Ireland. So I trained in that, and I did that for a couple of years. And then when I finished my accounting exams, my ACA with first-time passes, I then decided to do my tax exams because I really loved tax. It was such a weird thing. And it really solidified it for me from my audit experience. Because what really bothered me in my audit experience was that when I was auditing and someone asked a tax question, they would go, you got to talk to the tax team. And I was like, but I just did my exams and I kind of have an understanding of kind of what the answer, no, but you got to call the tax team. And I'm like, but why? Really bothered me. And it's just one of those things that bothers me over time where when someone goes, no, someone else knows this, it's like, I should have an operational level of knowledge in this. So it just powered me more to go, I want to do my tax exams. And the way I described it was like being a one-stop shop accountant, right? I have enough knowledge of both sides. I then know when I need to call an expert, but I'm not completely like inept and not able to answer the basic question, which is, will the VAT rate change next year? Call the tax team. I'm like, this is ridiculous, right? So I did my tax exams. And then I was thinking about my career and I was like, right, so there's like 100 people coming out of my intake. So there's 100 CVs. So what makes my CV stand at the top of the pile? I've got a first class honors degree. I got my first time passes in my accounting. I'm now finishing my tax exams. I self-funded myself. And so then I said, you know what? I love technical accounting. Like I loved kind of beating people with a book and going, you're wrong. This is why. I just loved it, right? Kind of weird. Not literally, of course, but it was quite nice, right? And that's the finiteness of some parts of accounting was quite nice. And so I then decided to do a diploma in IFRS with Chartered Accountants Ireland. And I thought, actually, if I do this, I'll have more education. When someone looks at my CV, I'll be at the top of the pile for some reason. And then maybe, I'll have a better chance of getting an interesting job after audit. So I did that. And it's kind of weird because people were like, why are you doing this, Vineta? Like you just did your accounting exams, but you learn a different skill set. You start looking at exposure drafts of technical accounting, which you never really do in your accounting exams. You just kind of learn, do I capitalize this or do I do this? So I just looked at it from that perspective. So, we were looking at the leasing standards and going write draft responses about how you would want to change, how you account for leases. And you have to really think about users of accounts, users of, there's obviously I don't want business to do this, but then I'm also thinking about users. I'm thinking about the accounting side. So it was really rounded. I really enjoyed it, actually. So I finished there, and then I knew I wasn't going to be in audit. Lehman Brothers had collapsed. So the Vineta Bajaj hedge fund dream died with that, but it was fine. And so I was like, I wanted to go into industry because I wanted to kind of help grow a business.
Yep.
And my mother would always say stuff like, go to industry, they'll give you a company car. And I'm like, it's not the 90s. It's just not how it works anymore. So she was like, always go into industry, you'll get more, right? So I moved to Kerry Group, which is probably one of the most successful public company stories from Ireland. They're currently now about an 8 billion revenue business in nearly every country in the world. In the UK and Ireland, we know them as probably innocent juices, ham and hand, Richmond sausages, so food and butter, obviously. And that's only about 18% of their revenue. The balance is ingredients and flavors. So they basically acquire, flavoring from all around the world and then sell it to FMCG companies, right? So, the way they work is if I'm a large retailer and I go, I want to build a new ready meal, I would go to them, and normally I would go to like 5 different companies, get all the different things, try it and go, it doesn't taste right, and then try it again. But what they would do is they would have an R&D center, and you could just go up there and go, I want to create a chicken curry ready meal. And then you would just go, I want to be less spicy, more spicy. I want to be more gourmet-y. I want to be less this. And by the end of the day, the retailer goes, yeah, great, this is the right thing. And then all of the ingredients come from subsidiaries and ownerships through Kerry. So it was like really complex, which is quite interesting. So I moved to Tralee in Kerry, and I was like a group technical accountant. So consolidation by region, running the entire group audit, thinking about technical accounting. So I saw what overly mature businesses are, which was really fantastic. And part of that was really interesting. Part of that made me realize that my personality works in different cultures. My culture, there was some examples where in the culture, and it's very prevalent in Big Four. It's just, this is the way we do things. And it's not like, this is the way we do things, but you can improve it. It's just, this is the template, this is the format. And I had thoughts, I had ideas, I wanted to improve, I wanted to change things. And larger businesses often don't allow that freedom to do that. So I learned a lot. The business was changing. And also Kerry is very small for a 24-year-old. There's like nobody there. There's like one pizza delivery. There's like one Chinese takeaway. It's an hour and a half to a decent sized city for a night out type thing. And then you're like, this is, then you start kind of looking at lifestyle and stuff. So I started looking for a role.
And then you thought, Hatfield.
Yeah.
It's the place for me to open my...
Yeah, well, absolutely, right. Well, it's a good question, right? So actually, let me step back. Again, a bit more child psyche. So my father was a very successful businessman, but we lived a very kind of low to modest lifestyle, right? And one thing he did in his career was he had a job, and he was like a COO of a very large business in America, and they asked him to relocate to the US, and he wouldn't relocate our family because he was like, the education's better in Ireland and also the UK than it would be in the US. And that was his opinion at the time, which was right. And so he commuted from San Jose every other week for like 3 or 4 years, which is crazy. And what it taught me was that if you want something in your career, it doesn't really matter where you are and what you do, because that's your focus, that's what you do. So when I looked for a role and seeing that, and growing up around that, for me, location was never an issue. It didn't matter where in the world the role was. Still doesn't matter. What matters is it taking me in the right journey that I want to get to? So, and if that destination's Hatfield, so be it. So I looked at my career and I went, right, let me look. I opened out wide and I thought, right, maybe banking, maybe I'll go back, Lehman Brothers stuff's settled down now. The world has changed. So I had 3 job offers. I had a job offer from a very large bank, in internal audit. I had a job offer from a pre-IPO, food business. And then I had a job offer from Ocado. Interesting. And I couldn't really work out which one I wanted. So I did a pros and cons list and I rated them and thinking about location, lifestyle, whatever it is, right? And Ocado won because firstly, it was cheaper to fly from London to Shannon, Limerick, than it was to drive from Tralee to Dublin, because it was a 4-hour drive, literally, because you used to get a Ryanair flight for 1999, right? And time, right? Quite interesting, right? So minor. But I wanted a public company. I really enjoyed public companies. I liked the balance of governance, but I wanted just something different. I wanted something that was retail growth, and because I'd just been in an FMCG large business, I found that quite interesting. So I relocated to the UK. People always ask me, oh, what was it about Ocado? And it's like, it's really, they didn't exist in Ireland. So I had to Google them and look up who they were. I had no idea who they were. I was like partnership with Waitrose. What? Okay. It's just like, you remember the big vans. But realistically, I took the job because one, I wanted a public company. Two, they paid for my relocation. So, when you're sitting there at 25 trying to throw all your stuff and your piano on a truck, you're kind of like, well, if they'll pay for it, fine. And it was a slight career increase. So I was a senior accountant. So I was like, great, cool. So promotion, better money, interesting move, moved to the UK for 2 years, go back to Ireland. That was the plan. I was just like, let's just think about it, right? So I moved to the UK. So Ocado at the time was like 500 million revenue business, just opened the second warehouse in Birmingham, in Dordon. Finance team was about 20 people. I was one of two in the financial reporting team. When I joined, the group reporting manager had just left or was leaving to go home. The senior accountant was on maternity leave and I was covering that role, or rather taking that role. And then there was a junior accountant where they decided not to backfill. So I walked into a now gutted financial reporting team. And so briefly, my experience was, the role I did in that role was leading the audit, doing the subsidiary accounts, writing technical accounting papers, which didn't really exist much or not in a formal way that I brought. I did the kind of weekly reporting because I worked for this guy who was really, really inspiring. But he also said, reporting. So technically you're financial reporting. So all the reporting should go to you. So here's the management reporting pack and here's the weekly KPI pack, right? And I was like, this isn't financial reporting. But it was great because what happened was I had this very unique view of statutory accounts, consolidation, and all that fun stuff. And I also saw the business on a weekly basis. Right, which I didn't kind of appreciate at the time. I was just like, man, this isn't reporting. But I was interested, right? So I had month-end responsibilities. I had a person who worked for me, and then interestingly, because I joined as the only tax qualified accountant at the time. So this is a public company, FTSE 250, that didn't have anybody qualified in tax. Mm-hmm. So I just casually started doing all the tax comps. I started casually joining the finance director to some HMRC meetings. I was casually getting people from the AP team asking me, is this VAT rate right? And I'm sitting there going like, I've literally never worked a day in tax in my life. I just have a qualification. It's quite interesting, right? And that was really interesting because it's about mindset. Like my mindset is, it isn't, I don't do tax. It's not my role. I'm kind of like, I don't know the answer, but this person in front of me seems to think I should know the answer. So I'll get back to you. Can you give me like a couple of hours and then I'll go figure it out? Yeah. And that, I'm not going to say that's not very common, but from people I've hired and how I've built, it's such an interesting way. And that's why like my personality is quite challenging in many ways, right? I'm kind of like, interesting. Don't know what that is, but I guess I can figure it out for you. And so, about 18 months to 2 years later, I was, and I just had this continuous mindset. So a year in, I was like, the Excel files were all this crazy Access database. And I'm like, can we get a tool? And we went to the FD and the FD said, no, I don't want to get Hyperion or a tool. It's money. I don't want to spend the money. And so so me and my boss at the time, we were driving with our CFO. We just happened to be in the car with our CFO, to a dinner. It was a celebratory dinner for the year end. And we happened to be driving him through St. Albans. And then we turned around to him and said, look, we're seeing issues on the board reporting and we'd really love to get a tool. It's not going to cost much. Would you be open to listening to a business case? And that was after I played a really awkward joke. which kind of broke the ice. So I'll tell you what actually happened. So what happened was we're sitting in St. Albans Main Street, and if you lived in St. Albans for as long as I have, and probably as long as you have, Neil, it's like there used to be Dunkin' Donuts on the main street, and my CFO was called Duncan Tatton Brown, who's my mentor. So I'm in the back seat of the car, and my boss is driving, and we're sitting in this traffic at 5:30 on the main street, and I looked at Dunkin' Donuts and I said, every time I see Dunkin' Donuts, I always think of you, Duncan. I don't know why. And there was like silence for 5 seconds. It's a good joke, right? It's a good joke. I thought it was a good joke, right? And then my boss says, so Vineta is the comedy act in finance. But actually, while we're at it, can we talk to you about board reporting? And we just basically segued in, and we just said, look, would you be interested in hearing about a business case? And he said, yeah, I'll be interested. And he said, look, would it be better to get like a big four to come in and maybe do an analysis? And we're like, no, we don't want to, we have a view of what we're looking for. Would you be open to it? And he said, yeah. And just in that, getting the CFO to kind of agree that he'd be open to a business case, you kind of bypass your boss, your FD at the time. But you had the ability to actually have that heard. And you don't realize at that exact moment in time, you've somehow influenced a situation, and you don't realize you've actually influenced by going over somebody's head, but through a casual conversation in a car. It's fantastic, right? And so 2 weeks later, we brought a business case, and then we agreed to implement Oracle Hyperion, or it was PBCS at the time. And I was given an intern for 3 months that I convinced to join. And 3 months we did it on time, under budget. And that's what I did in my first 18 months. So then the FD came to me and said, hey, do you want to be head of tax? I need a head of tax, and it's a promotion. You'll report to me now, and we have lots of tax stuff. And I was like, no. And I was like, I don't think you need that kind of role. And he was like, but I think it'd be a really good, interesting role for you. And I said, no, I don't want to be head of tax. I love tax. Like, it's fun. Like, I keep saying it. I love it, right? It's fun. But no, I don't want to do it. And then he was like, it's really commercial. And I was like, it's really not. And he was like, okay. And he said, but you want to be a CFO, right? So I was like, yeah. And I was like, he said, this is a route to CFO. And I distinctly remember sitting in his office, and I said to him, no disrespect, but you're not a CFO. Can I ask the actual CFO if this is a route to his role? And he was like, yeah. And it's such an interesting situation, because when I think back now, I'm like, what could he have said? No, you can't ask the CFO. No, like what? Like, you got to think about it. He can't be a dick about it, so he's got to say something. Like, what's he going to say? So he's like, yeah, sure, of course. So I emailed the CFO, and I was like, hey, he's telling me about this role. I'd love to talk to you about my career. And he was abroad, and he said, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about it. So 2 weeks later, we had a meeting, and I just said, look, Sky's showing up. He told me, apparently, if I do head of tax in 10 years, I can get your job. Don't worry, you're fine for now. But I'm just trying to work out, is this going to help me get there? I'm not really sure. And he was like, what do you say? What do you say in that situation? He's sitting there and he's like, I either throw the guy who works for me under the bus. I mean, what do you say, right? And it was such a masterclass in watching someone talk around a very interesting situation. But basically, he gave me some really interesting career advice, which was, it's really good that you're thinking about your career. Just told me, just think about like experience in broad areas. Mm-hmm. Said that head of tax and treasurer are less trodden routes, is how he described it. But they're still routes. And then off I went, very happy. But what I didn't realize was that meeting, obviously he just went over to the FD and said, if someone is interested, hear their idea out. That's all he had to say. And you don't realize that in that moment, you've actually just influenced the situation. All I was thinking was, I don't think this is the right thing for me. And when you think back, you're like, crap, I actually just really somehow influenced an entire situation that worked in my favor. So my pitch was, I'd love to get paid more. I don't need it, because actually the answer is you can be a head of tax, but you need someone who knows where the bodies are buried, or you either go dig them up or bury them deeper. That's basically it. So I said, all I need is I can do my role, everything, run the year end, run the half year, run everything I'm doing right now. I can also do your head of tax role. Instead of giving me the money, don't give me anything. Let me hire someone for 3 months or 6 months. These are the 6 risk areas we have. I'll deliver all of these in the next 6 months. I'll manage my current boss and you, and I'll work for both of you concurrently for 6 months. And if I can prove I can manage both, I get to keep both jobs. Deal? Great. So easy peasy. Actually wasn't that hard. Yeah. 6 months later, was then promoted to being group financial controller, and head of tax, because we needed the job title. So that's basically, I had to be head of tax. And then through that, they were like, oh, well, take treasury while you're at it. And treasury was a cashier, fantastic cashier, but like no strategic treasury. And then I started doing, fundraising then. So within 3 months, our CFO said, hey, we want to do a senior secured notes, and we want to do it in 8 to 12 weeks. People had vacation booked, they have families, they have vacation booked, etc. And I obviously didn't. So I was, so I'm now the financial accountant. I'm now the tax person. I'm now the treasurer, and I understand how to tell the story because we've been doing it for the last 3 years. So from there, I started doing a lot of fundraising. So I did senior secured notes, in that role, because normally you'd call 3 or 4 different people. You'd have one project manager, but it was just a very unique situation where you just kind of call Vineta. It's just kind of a bit weird. So I did senior secured notes, unsecured notes, convertibles, etc. So I did a bunch of fundraising through Ocado. And then through that time, we were growing the business, right? You're trying to grow. So I just got more responsibility. We were building the grad programs, we were building the teams. I know Neil, you and I have worked historically about, hiring people, and, Ocado hired a lot. And I think a lot of people I hired and grew, and lots of temps or lots of permanent people. And then you're just kind of growing, and, again, now I'm like, I'm still like maybe 30, 31. Like I'm very young, like, right? Everyone who works for me is older, married, has kids, right? I'm like, I have cat, so it's quite interesting. And so, you're trying to be a leader. You're learning something that you've never done before. Cause I've never, let's just clarify, before this, I have about 1.5 years experience in a ridiculously large PLC. I have 3.5 to 4 years experience from a Big Four firm. And then I just have a lot of random side projects that I learn different things. So I was just thrown into a very unique situation. But, whenever someone came to me and said, I want to do this, I literally never went, that's not my remit, or I can't do it. I would just go, sure.
And did you say sure because at this point you had gone, I want to be a CFO and I'm ticking these things off, or it was just, it's interesting, or it's adding to my skill set, or?
Yeah, it's a good question. No. So the route to CFO was always going to be there, right? Yep. If you decide that you want to be a CFO, that's it, right? Mm-hmm. So, and just to go back, anything I do it so I can get to the top. That's just my mindset. There's no point doing it. Go big or go home, right? That's my approach. Mm-hmm. So that was always the plan. If you decide to go into audit, you're going to go be partner. You want to go into industry, you're going to be at the top. That was my approach. My career approach was, so I said I was going to join Ocado for 2 years and I was going to leave. So the plan was 18. So it takes you 2 years to do a role, 1 year to learn a role, and 1 year to properly add value to a business. Mm-hmm. So by 18 months, you need to think about where you're going to be in 6 months' time. So every year to year and a half, there was lots of interesting projects in Ocado that then added to my CV of things that I could tick off. And things that I couldn't tick off, I then went to them and said, I don't have experience in this. So a very specific example about how I did this was the business was saying to me, look, you are a fantastic technical person, but commercial or owning a P&L or whatever it is, you don't have that experience, right? And I'm like, great, cool. So when are you going to give it to me? My career aspirations. And they're like, we will. And they were like, we'll do it in 1.5 years or in a year or whatever. And then they weren't. So I basically walked into my FD, 2017, 2018, and I resigned. Now I was a bit of a dick, right? I basically did it on the day he was going on vacation, and I know what I was doing, right? And I literally walked in and I said, it was like 4:00, and I was like, I'm resigning. And he was like, what? I was like, look, I went, you're not taking my career seriously. I want to be a CFO. You keep telling me I need a commercial experience. You told me you'd give me more experience a year ago. Nothing's happened. I don't have a job. You're not taking me seriously. I'm out of here. And he was like, can this wait until I'm back from vacation? And I was like, no, clock's ticking. So I got 3 months notice. Off you go. Because I was just like, honestly, I had nothing. I was really because I was just like, you keep saying you're going to do this, but you're not. And this is not about money for me. This is about my career. So I met the FD. I met the CFO while the other FD was on vacation. And he said, so you resigned? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, why? And I told him. And he said, and you don't have a job? And I was like, no. And he said, okay. And he said, and he looked at me and he went, it's pretty ballsy. And I was like, you've known since I joined that I want your job. Not your job, not this job. You're fine. Like that job. And he keep telling me I have some gaps, but you're not giving it to me. So he was like, okay. And so he went off and came back, and then they both came back after he came back from vacation, and they sat down with me. They said, right, we think there's some soft skills, like, you're a bit of a bull in a china shop sometimes. Maybe we need to think about I was like, okay, cool, great. This is great. I wanted it. Tell me, give me the feedback. So they said, we'll do a mentoring once a month. They'll give me basically a feedback every month, right? Mm-hmm. They promised me that they would change my role, or they would give me something else in, 6 months, and they committed it to me. So we had this interesting plan. And then they actually offered me a pay increase, and I said, I didn't want it. And I said, if I take it, I said, it's basically like, this was not an extortion. I don't want it. I want your time, because that's more valuable to me. And so then I rescinded my resignation about 6 weeks later. But it's just you have to think about it, right? So basically, in the entire time I was there at Ocado, which I was there for 10 years, and I say this to people, like, you have to interview every year, because you have to work out where your gaps are, and then you need to work out whether you can get it from your business or you go outside. Mm-hmm. So I was conveniently in different projects where I was learning, so therefore I was ticking off stuff in that approach. Mm-hmm. But I was also very aware that, or I was being told, that because I never, was the head of finance business partner, or I wasn't the FP&A manager, that I needed that, right? And so then I started getting different exposure to that. I got a smaller P&L. I started growing that way. Mm-hmm. Not as big as the other P&Ls, but I had something that kind of gave me that string while I held everything else. And so then I just kept growing through the business, and then I grew to being very senior. I held a variety of finance director roles, and then I got to a point, and I was like, will I get this number one role here? Mm-hmm. I love the business; it's amazing, right? I was part of a lot of the international expansion, and then I realized that I probably wasn't going to get it there. Mm-hmm. I had a really open conversation with my CFO, and I said, I want your job in 5 years' time. What are you going to do to make me a potential successor? And you kind of forget that, like, now we're a FTSE 50 at the time, it's different. Are you going to hire a first-time CFO into that role? And then you step back and go, and then I had to really step back and go, I have this aspiration where I want to do it, but I love this business, and I could sit here for 20 years because I love this business so much. And then I really had to take stock, and I went, I owe it to myself to do this. So I went looking. Mm-hmm. And I had a variety of people who told me different things. I talked to recruiters. Some said, if you want a CFO role, you got to go be FD of EMEA Diageo. And I was like, God, that sounds horrible. That does not sound like my kind of jam. Mm-hmm. And then I had people going, yeah, you could get it. You have no commercial. And then I had people going, yeah, you're a bit younger. And then I had people going, this is your time. You can do it, but I have no roles for you. And I was like, I am going to wait. This is it. And I basically was like, I know what I can do. I know how I can do it. And I'm going to wait for the right role for me. And then I went and I got it. And when I got to the end, I had 3 CFO offers. One from a FTSE 350 in the UK, one from a smaller business in fintech, and then Rohlik. And it's interesting because I always wanted a public company role, but I always thought I wanted it because I always wanted to be Duncan. Like, I'll never be like anything on what Duncan is. He's one of the most amazing CFOs I've ever worked for. But when I stepped back, I actually called him. He's my mentor. And I went, these are the roles. What should I do? And he said, there's a point in your life where you go, it's not about the money you make, it's about interesting work. And he was like, and you've literally spent like 40 minutes talking about one business. And I was like, and he said, I think you know the answer. And so then I joined Rohlik to be Group CFO. And it's interesting because this is the interesting part there, right? There are different types of CFO roles. And I was offered roles. And that's the thing. It's like, and about 5 years before I started looking for my CFO role, I was like, what type of CFO role do I want? I don't want to be, I was sent like a CFO spec for like a divisional CFO in a larger business. I was sent like one that was like a privately owned business. There's ones that are CFOs, but they're basically glorified heads of finance. And I was like, I want like all of it on me. Like, that's it. Like the business's livelihood and going concern and bankruptcy is on me. I want all of it. I don't want to be, I was like, I want all of it because I want to be like an actual proper grown up, hold everything. I don't want I'm a CFO of a division and it looks like on my LinkedIn, I'm like amazing, but I'm actually like going to my head company and getting my budget signed off for 20 million and I don't have to worry about it. Like that's kind of, I don't want to do that. I want I want everything.
Why?
Because that's interesting. It's yeah.
Why do you want that?
It just feels like when you've done nearly every type of role, like the experience I had in those 10 years, like is more than many people have in their entire career. And I was like, I actually had some people who turned around to me and said, do you even want to be a CFO? Because actually, when you've done everything, it's just a title. And I was like, I just need to tick this box. Like, I need this. And then let's figure out what we do after that. But that's what I want. But I wanted to be the decision maker. I spent years being number two. I was number two behind the curtain. I was number two in every scenario. And I loved it because that was the success of the business. But I just wanted to be the person literally in this seat when I talk to an investor and go, this is why the business is good, not being the person afterwards setting the numbers or whatever, or being the person here not answering the question. I literally wanted to own everything because for me, that's like, it's like I control my whole life and I want to control a whole business from a finance perspective.
We speak to a lot of people who want to do the same thing. What's it really like?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's great. I love it. It's great. No, it's great. It's an adjustment at the beginning because you have to get out of the rhythm of realizing you don't have to ask someone. And that's a very interesting thing. So a guy came into my office when I went into Rohlik and he said to me, he was pitching that he wanted to take a bigger role and, he thinks he'd be worth this amount of money. And it was only like an extra, I think, €1,000 a month. I don't know what it was. And he was like, so what do you think? And I said, I said, let me get back to you. Right. And he left my office. And then I kind of realized I actually don't need to ask anybody if I give this person in my function a pay increase. Like, who would I need to ask? Like, it's literally the money. Like HR, it's an out of cycle pay increase. I don't have to do anything. And that's a weird experience because every decision lies with you. So it takes a while to adjust because you have to kind of work out, do I want to make that decision then? Or do I want to set up a precedent where I always take a step away and just think about it? Because then you can make decisions on the fly. That was one of the hardest adjustments, is what I would say. I think the other thing that I learned about the role is it's fascinating. Because I obviously ran the entire year-end audit process in Ocado for so long. It's like, I remember the pride I still take in just making sure there was no double spaces in parts of the annual report or everything was perfect, right? And I remember I would go to the CFO and I'd have the meeting and he'd be like, yeah, great job, whatever. And that was I planned my whole week around this one meeting to go, it's all done. This is my 7-week project. It's done. It's all out, etc. And it's and you realize now as a group CFO, of 5 countries, with $1 billion revenue, you realize that's one tiny minor thing out of a bajillion things, right? And the pride I took in that one meeting was one meeting and an array of other fun, hard, difficult stuff. And that's what's really cool. So the variety and the roller coaster of it, you have great meetings and you have terrible meetings and you have great one-to-ones and you have terrible one-to-ones and then you have a random thing and then you've got an investor. It's the variety is amazing and it's great.
How do you feel, I guess, now you've actually achieved your goal of being a CFO? Because I get the sense from you that you've got this constant thirst for learning, for developing. And I guess where does that growth sit for you in now and in 10 years' time or what have you in your kind of life and career? Because you've kind of done it. You're a CFO. You got everything you wanted. You set out to achieve. Now. Yeah. So I'm just really interested. I guess you're just going to keep learning, keep growing. But what do you think about that?
Yeah. So I have a lot of capacity in my time. So what I say when I ever look for a role is, and it's a really bad thing to say because I don't mean it to my team, is I look for a 6-day-a-week job is what I always say. Not for my team. Do as I say, not as I do is what I always tell them. Because I love, and because the thing is, if a business doesn't fill my capacity, I'll find other things to fill my capacity. And that's why I always look for that. So, towards the end of my time at Ocado, I was getting, it's a corporate business of getting a bit bored now. So I started doing, I joined the University of Cambridge Business School as a mentor for students. My own university board in the University of Limerick on the advisory board for the business school, and then I also started doing random things. So like I'm a big PC gamer. Like I'm a big computer gamer. Like I have like 0 friends, or they're all online. I quite enjoy gaming, and I would have loved to work in the gaming industry, like the actual PC gaming or industry of console games or whatever. But then you get to a point where you're like, well, I go be a CFO in a gaming industry, and you go, probably not actually when you look at your career. So how do I use the skill sets? Well, I basically approached a couple of businesses who are in this industry as startups, and I was like I'd love to give you my time to help you in this industry to drive forward. Like no equity, no money. I'm interested. And that's how I started filling my time. So what I often do now is, and now I'm a industry thought leader expert on e-commerce, retail, grocery, whatever it is. It's like, I regularly have businesses reaching out to me, asking me to, be an advisor or help them or whatever it is. And that's super interesting because you get to switch off and on to different things again. So when I think about, what the future holds, I think continuously helping and driving growth of smaller businesses is something that I'm really passionate about. Because what I realize, and I think CFOs and senior leaders don't realize, is that these small businesses that are really trying to really disrupt, 30 minutes to 1 hour with someone like on this side of the mic, or other people at this level can actually be quite transformational for them, because they would never have that opportunity often. And I always want to give them that time, which is why I'm like, I want to spend time mentoring students. I want to spend time mentoring entrepreneurs. So I definitely see that as part of my future.
Could I just ask a question about capacity? Because it seems like you've got this amazing brain and kind of bandwidth that I'm super jealous of actually already just from hearing you speak. But have you ever got to a point where you've just gone, enough?
No.
My mind is full. I can't take it anymore. Because I get that with much less than you've got.
Not yet. I'd probably say not yet.
Okay.
No, it's because let me formulate my thoughts. Not yet, but I anticipate at some point in my life, like most people in civilization, will probably hit that. And for as long as I have this energy where I just funnel it into things, I want to keep tapping it. Because at some point I'm probably going to wake up and go, well, I think I made enough money now. So, or, well, let's go to a beach. I'm not there yet. So I keep doing it. And because I could stop. I could, like, I've had, when I was even looking at even Rohlik, or even before Rohlik, people were like, why don't you just go do, like, you can take a smaller CFO role, or go become a really good number 2, and just enjoy being a number 2. And you don't have that. And you could probably find a nice 40 to 60 hour a week, depending on where it is. And I'm like, that sounds so boring, man. I don't want that. I want it all. Mm-hmm. I just, so not yet. I'm sure I might hit that at some point, but I'm not there yet. But I think it's actually just about carving out your time. And finding the right time. So I obviously try to find balance in my life, but and I'm going to say something really, really bad that I really shouldn't say, but it's like, I don't believe in work-life balance, right? Because I think if you enjoy your work, it's part of your life. And that's what's important. And work isn't, I work. It's, I'm building something. I'm helping, like, everybody who works for me is developing. I'm impacting their lives and their careers. Every person that we deliver groceries to, their lives are being transformed because they're saving 2 hours of their Saturdays not going to the store. Like, I am on a mission, and that mission fuels you. And so when you think about people going, well, I want to clock out at 5, it's like, yeah, sure. I like going out on a Friday night, or I like doing, or not, and sitting in the nice fuzzy glow of my PC maybe. But that doesn't mean I go, I don't want to work, because you shouldn't see it like that. And I appreciate that different people at different levels obviously see that in different ways, but I've never seen work like that. I've always seen it as, I'm leveling up myself. I literally look at it like a game. I'm literally leveling up myself in different areas. This is a side quest. I'll do this quest. This is the main quest. I know I forgot to get that. And then you go back and forth. That's literally how I see life, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
I quite like that analogy. Like gaming, to do this and do that. Yeah.
And that's why, like, I started like a few years before COVID. I was getting into a bit more fitness, and I'm really bad like on doing any kind of exercise, and I don't get runner's high. I hate running. I hate any form of cardio. I just cannot stand it, right? But weightlifting I can get behind, because I'm like, okay, and it's like strength training 5x5, because I'm like, will I be able to add that extra weight? And then you see leveling up, and that's what you just look at it as leveling up, and that's literally how I look at nearly most things. It's just, how can I level up everything? How can I level up my talent, my systems, my processes, my business, everything, my life, everything. So.
Tell us about leveling up your CFO game using AI.
Yeah, right. Oh, goodness. I'm sure some CFOs have ideas. There's so much amazing technology out there. Like, there's such easy ways to leverage AI, and it's not like, they're in finance. I think finance was probably the original MVP of like technology, which is like, oh, I'll do, invoice scanning. Ooh, the machine learns the invoice, and we're like the original MVPs, but somehow we lost it, right? And we're at a really interesting juncture, like with technology, that we can actually get that back. But the problem is that Big Four or institutions don't encourage accountants to think like that. It's super hard skills and books, right? And I think education needs to change that way. But one of the skills that I probably have as a leader, which is probably not a skill in hindsight, saying this out loud, is I'm really impatient, because impatience allows you to go, how can this be faster? And then it forces you to think differently, right? And that's kind of one part. And I'm not impatient like in a bad way. I'm just kind of like, there's got to be a faster way to do it, or there's a better way to do it, or a smarter way to do it. Like, this shouldn't take you 3 days of Excel or whatever it is. So an example that I recently did, so one part in Rohlik, which is amazing, is one of our values are quite strong, the way we describe them. And so we do a lot of we role model a lot of our ingredients. So one of the things as an exec board is we try and role model. So challenge the status quo is one of our values, and diving deep is one of our values, right? And I do those all the time, because I'm kind of going, and I mean a lot, more than I really should. So one thing, so in my original job in Ocado, right, I had to write papers, and I would write a paper on, how do I account for the VAT on something? I'm doing this partnership. How do I account for it? So I remember I would write, the purpose of this paper is to blah, 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 right? Then I would write down, the standards is this. Then I'd open the book and I'd do it. Then I'd have writer's block, because like, who wants to write an accounting paper? But I only have to get it to my boss on Thursday. It's now Monday. So then the next day I'd write a bit more. And then maybe on Wednesday I'd go at 6:00. Oh shit, I haven't written this paper. And then I'd blitz through it in 2 hours, like most of my uni essays. And then I'd write through it, right? And then I'd give it to him on Thursday, and then I'd print it for him. And then he'd come back to me with like scribbled notes, because he should have been a doctor, because he couldn't read his handwriting at all. And then I'd change it like the following Tuesday. Then it would go to the FD. So there's this entire process, right? Now, Rohlik is a scale-up startup, right? So like, we're a Series D, 1 billion revenue. We're a VC backed. So, we have growing pains, and that's cool, right? So one thing we don't have is we don't actually have, like right now, written accounting policies. And, the amount of times over the years people have gone, oh, can I capitalize this? And can I do this? And then someone will go, oh, I'll let you know. And then they'd send you an email with a paragraph, and they'll go, it doesn't make sense. And I was like, there's gotta be a better way to do it. So currently, I don't have many papers written. And I was like, I went to my financial reporting team and I said, look, I want to write these papers, and let's make this a quarterly objective for the team, just to kind of grow us up a bit and just kind of have formality and stuff, right? Work happened, and they were doing other projects. So they were like, oh, we need to move by a quarter. And I was like, but I don't think we need to move this by a quarter. And they're like, no, we need to. And I was like, you know what? Let me write the policies. Like, I'm a bit of a nerd, right? Like, I've got the diploma in IFRS, right? I've got a bunch of other diplomas on other accounting stuff. And I'm like, I'll do it. No, Vineta, and you kind of forget you're the CFO, right? And you're like, but it's role modeling. Let me role model it for you. Let me help you. Right. So they're like, okay, cool. So I basically built like this AI tool where I basically went, right, I have my accounts, I'll put it in, my Rohlik accounts. I have IFRS standards, I'll put it in. I'll put in an example template paper, and I'll put in like maybe 2 or 3 papers that I've written. And then I started teaching it. So I built a large language model where I started teaching it, and I was like, right, write me a paper on this. And it would give me a standard paper. I'll go, now tailor it to Rohlik Group. And then I'll go, now give me some examples from the numbers. Now tell me what the disclosure requirements are. This kind of stuff, right? And so basically within like, I did it on like a Saturday. I was just one morning. And then basically the team told me, here are the 20 papers we need to write. So then I basically wrote like 16 of them because I thought 4 was irrelevant. And then I basically sent it to them and I said, here are the papers. And and here's the model. So try it, test it, like tell me, does it work? Does it not work? Because I don't know what the percentage accrual for Jira and I is. I don't need to know. But maybe if you tell me, then I can teach it. And so we wrote everything. So I when I think back, I'm like, well, I had a team of like 3 people who did that in my previous company. And now I'm kind of like, it's all written. And now I've shared that with my whole finance team. So now no one asks questions about how can I capitalize X? They just ask the question and then they can argue with it. And it has our business knowledge broadly in it that allows you to argue, capitalizing revenue recognition. If I want to build a new business model, how would I account for it? If I want to change my contingent consideration 12 months after, what are the arguments that I could use with an auditor to help me? Like it helps you like that.
Yeah.
Really, really simple thing. And like when I think about that, I'm kind of like, I don't think I'll ever hire a financial accountant again now. And if I was looking for a job in the market, I'd be like, I think I can replace 80% of your job actually. So what are you doing? Which is a different way to look at AI. So as a finance person, I'm like, right, so I can probably run a nearly lights out finance department in about a year as I leverage more technology. And that's just one small example.
So we're not far away from a 3, 4, 5 person finance team running $1 billion company.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Because if you have a good ERP set up well, you have a good OCR scanner. So and that's the other thing. Another example is dive deep. I was wondering why, my NPS in finance still doesn't feel better, despite the fact that we've shortened the month end, we've increased the scanning, we've increased POs, we've automated a bunch of stuff. And I was like, life in finance still seems quite hard. So something's not working. So I basically and this is just an example of as a leader, I basically sat down with like parts of my shared services team in invoice processing. And I was like, talk me through how you process the invoices to the OCR and stuff. Like, oh, we do this. And I know, show me, literally show me, put it on screen, show me. Oh, I clicked and I'm like, oh yeah, we pushed this through. I know, literally walk me through the process. I click this, I click this, I click this. This is often wrong. And then they showed me and I spent like and it's probably not a good use of my time, but it might be when I have a lights out finance team. But I worked through it and I was like, wow, so they're clicking through 5 things. Fine. So let's say they have to click through 5 things. I'm like, great. So why can't I just build an AI agent that just clicks it for me 5 times? Let's say for whatever, instead of me changing the OCR, why can't I just either a simple RPA tool or I build an AI agent that just looks at the screen and just clicks it 5 times because it just has to do that. Then if I looked at that and I was like, so if I don't click 5 times, how much time would it save? And they were like, it would save 3 hours a day by 30 people. And I'm like, cool. And I'm like, there on my whiteboard going, great. This is, and so when you look at things like that, and that I'm building a roadmap now on like, how I improve things in finance to make life easier. And then I can repurpose those people to do more value add roles, or maybe those roles don't exist anymore. So, that example is just a great example of that. I think finance teams will definitely get smaller over time, provided the right process and systems are in place. Like you can't have, silly processes and then you're botching it because it just has to be, I wouldn't say it has to be right. It has to be like 80-20 and 80-20 is enough because then the role of the finance team is more value add and insight rather than can I capitalize something or can you please process this invoice? It should go to an email. It should get auto scanned. It should be clicked by something. It should have the PO and then it should get paid automatically 1 click. And actually it's something that we do in our business, which is really great. It's going to sound kind of weird. It's like, how many touches happen in a process, right? And then you go, if I can reduce this amount of touches, I remove this amount of human intervention. And so I look at it as a touch process, in everything, not just finance, everywhere.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's just so, as you're speaking, and there's so many opportunities, isn't there? We've done simple GPTs like logging all of our operational HR handbooks, etc., and building a GPT so anyone can say, tell me about STOIX' work from home policy or whatever.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities across every part of business, isn't there? And finance is obviously just one part. But for you, is that something you'll keep going at across the business as well. Because,
absolutely. We do a lot of AI across the whole business. So we're doing, it's a huge part of our DNA. It's just a lot of automation. It's just, we really implement like the 5 why principles in everything we do. It's just when someone's like, well, I have to go ask the commercial team what is the best product to use. It's like, why? Because they know the best one. Why? Because they, it's just like, but if I built something that looked at my website that then looked at this range of stuff and then suggested me 5 things, and then I pick it and it shows me the image and then it automatically puts it in, I don't need to talk to this person at all. And then I'm sitting there going, what are these category managers doing now? And so we are looking at that everywhere. We're looking at it in IT. We're looking at it in, when you're doing A/B testing or you're running code and you're trying to test how it works, you can get an AI agent to run it for you. And therefore then the testing team is now, obviously they're looking at the output of it. So we're using that a lot. I think to your example, what STOIX are doing on GPTs to help people, something that I learned as well with my stuff is you can build these GPTs, but you need people to use them. So people have to want to self-serve, right? And there are, I think with the number of different generations in the workplace, you have people who go, I'd like to have a call about this. And you're like, we don't need to talk actually. It's right here. But, and I kind of sounds a bit silly, right? But you're kind of like, it's not that I don't want to talk to you. It's that, if I think about the cost of the time that we spend talking, it's probably time that, you're breaking my concentration or you're doing it. We'll have some pleasantries. You'll be late. I'll be late, whatever. And it's just like, this is irrelevant. The answer is here. If you have any follow-up questions, we can do it asynchronously. And so I think there's another side of this, which is kind of how do you keep the human interaction of the culture in a business? But I think that'll be different because the touch points of communication will be more value add and significant rather than what's my policy on X, because some people will kind of go, oh, I'd like to sit down and talk to you about whatever. Like, can onboarding of a business be completely automated through AI? Now, on one hand, you could go, yes. On the other hand, you go, how do I induct somebody into my culture? So I need to have a human touch. So how do you find that balance while optimizing certain parts? Because I think there's places where we can over-index and under-index. I think in finance, like I said, finance being the original MVPs of of automation, classic Xerox scanner type stuff, right? I think there's a huge amount of opportunity. And I think the profession has just been left behind because of this. We need these processes. We need, who needs a shared services center? Like, you can automate all of it. Like, who needs it, And so I think over time, finance needs to get ahead of the curve, or else it's either do it to yourselves or have it done to you. And I'm doing it to myself. Because if I do it as a CFO, my business leaders and all the other areas will see. So this year, I have a more reduced headcount than any other function in my business. I'm leading by example. What are you doing? Right? So that's really important when you're a CFO.
Feels like really your role is, and maybe the role of a lot of future CFOs is just going to be about how do I improve stuff all of the time, value add, improve processes, improve systems, improve data. That feels like your mindset of how we will work with AI. So instead of doing stuff, you'll just be looking to improve stuff or interrogate it or
absolutely
tell the model to do it in a different way.
Absolutely. That is absolutely how the role will change. And I think the profession can be challenged in a different way. My CFO, I'm a CFO, sorry, I keep forgetting. This is like shit. My CEO, it's a pinch me moment. It's like, I made it. My CEO founder is a phenomenally inspirational man. And he, everything he challenges, and it's really insightful. It's also very painful sometimes. And he recently challenged me on an interesting topic, where he said to me, why do I need to look at a P&L? And so you're sitting there going like, man, come on, it's like, because we're a growing up company, I need the P&L. You probably should look at it. There are some necessary evils in life that as we get bigger, you probably should see it. But he was just like, but we're a daily, weekly business, which we are. We look at our business metrics on a weekly basis all the time. We talk in business metrics all the time. Like I don't talk about revenue. I talk about my basket size, my frequency, my weekly users, my margin. And I can basically, through these business metrics, basically work out high level my finance, my P&L. And I talk to business more in metrics than I do in P&L, right? So there is an actual genuine point that goes, why do we at the end of a month talk through a P&L? Right. And it's a really good fundamental question. And I was like, you know what? I need to think about this one. It's really interesting, right? Because on one hand, I'm going, I want to IPO this business in the future. I'm going to need to have my little audit committees and all my stuff. And I gotta be seen to be doing all these little stuff, these things. But actually internally, you're right. Like, do I want to spend 30 minutes of our time as an executive board looking at a P&L when actually I could just talk about 5 or 10 KPI metrics? Because as long as they're improving as how we forecast them, the P&L works, right? Not many finance people will, and that's finance people need to adapt to that kind of thinking. And that's how I think the function will go. So we've reduced P&Ls. Because it's a really good point. You know, when you sit back, you go, well, why are we doing this? But why would we do that? And then what insight am I getting? And is it actually value add? And the answer is, you know, I need it for compliance, but does he need to see it? Does the exec board need to see it? Probably not.
Yeah.
So I think the function and the entire profession needs to absolutely adapt and get ahead, or else it'll be left behind to a detrimental level. And I don't think the finance function realizes that right now in the world of technology.
You must have, I'm guessing there's been times, and often there is times of CFOs where you're not the most popular person around. Are there any things that spring to mind in time that you've been in the role? So
there's like a few things. My CEO, like in our one-to-ones or our catch-ups, it's like he knows that because obviously you have to, the relationship between the CEO and the CFOs, it's a partnership to a different level, like, right? And it's like he knew from within the first month that I joined that I get extremely emotional, is what he'd called me, on the tiniest of things, the tiniest money spent. And, you know, and he was like, oh, I wish you got more upset about bigger things. And I'm like, no, but it's the little things that really scale up, because it's a sense of the organization. So, like I said, we're a same day online grocer, right? Which means that, so when I joined, we were like ordering catering for our monthly business reviews through a restaurant down the road. And I was like, but I'm a same day grocer, so I can order like my poke bowls and my salad, like, and it can arrive. So why would I help the restaurant down the road? Why don't I just invest in my own business, right? So I business-wide decision to all the office managers. I was like, you know, in all the countries, I'm like, we're not doing external catering. We're only ordering from our site, because we do, right? And that's fine. Obviously, if you're catering for 80 people and you have to get an actual caterer, a different conversation, because I'll have to have people putting, you know, stuff in the oven or whatever, but it doesn't work. So there was two. So one example was we were doing an all hands, and it was a Friday, and we call it cheers and beers. So we'll basically do an all hands on a Friday, and then we'll order like, you know, beers off our site, and we'll order some food, and like, you know, and we put it out and stuff. And so I was standing there, and we were sorting out the chairs and the slides, and the next minute, like I think the receptionist or the office manager walks in with like, two of them walk in with like 20 stacks of pizzas. And I was just watching, and I just stood there and I just kind of watched it go by. And I was like, And I was like, okay. So I was like, don't want to talk to the office manager just in case. So I was like, at the time, the chief people officer. And I was like, who approved the pizzas? And she was like, oh yeah, they asked me if I wanted pizzas. And I said, yeah. I was like, so you approved the pizzas? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, why did you approve the pizzas? And she was like, because we were doing pizzas. We were doing a pizza theme. And I'm like, but if we don't have enough ovens in our office, we shouldn't be ordering pizzas. You can come up with a different theme. Why am I paying for pizzas? For it's 40 pizzas. Like, why am I doing it? And she was like, Vineta. And I'm like, no, don't Vineta me. I'm like, you have to role model this. Like, you have to. Like, seriously. Like, I was like, what are you doing? Right? I was definitely more composed than that reaction. That was my inside voice. But like, then, like, you know, we had a senior exec and, or not senior, like a senior person in the business, and he was with us for a few months. And so I was getting the expenses at the time, because at the time I was trying to clamp down, and just the way his expenses came in. And he was like charging an Uber from like his hotel to the office, right? And there's a tram stop literally like literally 4 steps in front of the door of the hotel. Like, it literally stops in front of the hotel. And it's like €1 to get the tram, or it's like €4 to get the Uber. And I was like, I'm not paying this. Why aren't you getting the tram? Like, why are you getting an Uber? Why are you charging me this? Why are you charging me your car? Like, what are you doing? So anyway, I get very upset. But
it's more about the behaviours rather than the actual money in a £1 billion.
Oh God, yeah. Well, no, but so I set up a process when I first joined, which is like a commitments committee. So CapEx, so anything that's not in my budget, outside of it, you have to ask. And I put a 0 threshold because no one could tell me how much we were spending on small things. So I was getting requests for, I need to order mobile phones for people, right? When I first joined, we let go of some people, and that was fine. And we had a hiring freeze, like most businesses, obviously, in 2023. And then about 5 months later, I got a PO for like 5 laptops. And I was like, why are we running laptops? Oh, because we need new laptops because we've got some people are joining. And I was like, but I just got rid of like 80 people. So there's like 80 laptops somewhere, and oh, they're not really nice. They've been a year old. And I'm like, I didn't realize that the useful life of a laptop was a year. Like, just saying like, I have a balance sheet problem then if you're saying that, like, and it's just, so I'm unpopular because what happens is I find little things and I will find someone and I will talk to them about it. And should I spend my energy on it? Probably not. But when the business, across the whole business, sees that the most senior finance person is going, why are you buying a new MacBook from here when there's like 10 in the cupboard down the road? It makes them go, she'll ask this question, I need to think about this before I really go back to her request. And it instills a culture of that. But it also means I'm probably less popular because I find these, because a PO for a laptop, I shouldn't be rejecting it. They're like, oh, it's just a laptop. And they're like, oh no, she's rejected it. Why she rejected it? And I'm like, oh, because of this. And then they have to message me and say, the reason I need the laptop is because this person joined and they want this particular MacBook. And I'm like, why does somebody in finance ask for a MacBook actually? Tell me who, because they should have a Windows, because why are they using a Mac? And it's just like, or they want a Mac, but it doesn't have to be the developer level Mac. And then they're like, why are we having this conversation? And I'm like, because one of our values in our business is think like an owner. And what I always say is, would you spend this money yourself? Mm-hmm. And if you wouldn't, you should not do it with the business's money. And that's it. And therefore, I think about it that way. And you need to think about it that way. So every single thing, I'll go, would you spend that money? Is there a better way to do it? Oh, there isn't a better way to do it? Fine. But there is a better way to do it. Like if you had to go spend your money to buy someone a nice fancy MacBook or, buy 20 pizzas, would you buy the 20 pizzas or would you think of a different way? And the answer is you probably think differently. So why the hell are you doing it? Yeah. Anyway, I get very upset about this. But it's the role modeling because like I said, and another example, and again, this is a really stupid example. So I'm currently interim chief people officer. And so I manage like the office staff and they run events every month because for the employee engagement. And so they want to do Halloween. Right. Look, I'm Irish. Like, I'm so upset that I live in the UK and like Halloween is not a public holiday. Like, it's very upsetting for me. Mm-hmm. So they were like, oh, we'll do Halloween. I'm like, yeah, great. And I said, well, tell me how much it's going to cost or, how much do you want? And, they're going to get pumpkins. I'm like, yeah, I'm like all about it. And they were like, well, we need and our office has about maybe the HQ, our R&D center has about maybe 300 people in it. And they were like, we better need like about €1,500 for decorations. And I was like, what, like, are they gold? what are you doing, right? And they were like, no, it's like, that's how much it costs. And I was like, is Halloween common here in Central Europe? And they were like, it's actually not. So it's not like you can go to the store. And I was like, do you know what? I was like, there must be a cheaper way to do this. So and they're like, maybe we could not get some of these kind of garlands and maybe we'll do this. So I could probably get it down to like €1,200. And I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I went, unfortunately, I live near Poundland. So here's a Poundland website. Fill your basket, whatever you want. Here's my address. Here's my cards. Order whatever you want to my house because when I fly, my suitcase is free when I check it in. So I'll check in an entire bag of decorations for you. £140. Now, I was a mule of Halloween decorations from Poundland, from my house to our HQ in Prague. But you know what? Every single time we run an event now, someone thinks 3 times before they come to me. They'll go, well, look, we tried this, and this is the best way we got it. Or we realized this was too expensive to do. So we're trying it a different way. And again, it's that role modeling of just think twice. Because would you spend €1,500 of your own money, like decorating something? Of course you wouldn't. So why is it okay to do it in our office? So, and I think that's the role of the CFO is the strategic, I want to acquire this business, or what's this, that, how does this help my value exit multiple? And it's also the pennies to a different level. You have to do that because you want the entire business to operate looking at pennies the right way and just being responsible while doing that at the same time, which often makes you a popular or unpopular CFO.
And just going back up here for people, because we do get a lot of questions. You raised a lot of money recently.
Yeah. About 170 million euro.
170 million euros.
On an up valuation.
And a lot of people we speak to, they're looking for CFO role, or they get knocked back a bit saying, you must have fundraising experience. You must have done this before, etc. What do you think about that?
That you need to have fundraising experience. I don't think you need to have fundraising experience. I think you need to have experience working with external stakeholders. I think that's actually the point, right? Yeah. So if I'm an internally focused, so remember my career was very external. And then if you're a financial accountant dealing with audit and stuff like that, you're dealing with external stakeholders, and then you're dealing with HMRC, and you're dealing with, whether it's banks or credit insurance or whatever it is, or just, so a lot of my experiences was external. And then the other side is, and then I was like, you don't have enough internal experience. So if I'm maybe a head of FP&A, or I'm a head of finance for a division, chances are that the main people I talk to are only in the business. So I think for me, like if I was hiring, or if I was looking at this, I would say that it's not about fundraising experience. It's about the ability to manage external relationships. Because if you have the ability to manage external relationships, whether that's a Big Four audit, whether that's just a normal banking relationship, whether that's, I have these 5 external providers and I have to manage them, it shows you have the flex to talk about the business story. And I think that is enough, because if you have the breadth of, I don't know, a budget, or managing or delivering results, or compliance, or technical, there's a point in your career where it doesn't matter whether you have these hard skills or not. It's about how you tell the story. So someone really, one of my first bosses said to me, because I used to be with my technical book going, it's wrong because of this, and he said to me, Vineta, at some points, he said, when you get to a point in your career where it doesn't matter how good of an accountant you are, it's how you communicate the concept or how you influence. That's what it's all about, right? And I think that's probably where it's coming from. So I think really it's about the external relationship management. I was, again, very fortunate that, through the fundraising, I was able to tell the story. So I can really talk about businesses as a non-finance person and talk through it in different ways. And the role of the CFO needs to be able to do that. But I think that flex is important. In the current economic environment, it's hard, right? Because, people aren't dispatching money. They're also trying to look at CFOs who have the experience to go, you've given me the money and I'm going to take care of it. And that's where it comes back to my concept of, I'm going to use a really terrible phrase, like a real CFO and then the CFO in the division. That's not what I mean. I mean, like I want all of it versus I'm surrounded by, a safe cushion everywhere. I think people, when you look at fundraising, don't want someone who's been that cushion because they don't understand the risk of that. But I think the way I would say it is demonstrating the ability to manage external relationships is a way to being able to leverage why you can do that fundraising if you don't have that experience. Because it's all because fundraising is about selling the story. It's literally like, the business is really good. This is why we're going to be a sustainable business or not. This is what we're going to do with your money. These are the controls around it. This is how I see the industry going. And you need to be used to talking about that story regularly. And I think if people don't have that, I think finding ways to get that or finding mentors to help them with that is important. I think people use mentors to try and find the ways to bridge those gaps. Or you turn around and go, maybe I'm not ready for the CFO role. Maybe one of the things are that I actually, because if you say I can do fundraising experience, I have or I don't have it, but I can manage external stakeholders, people are still expecting you to show up and bring the cash in. So I think the other thing that I would say to people like that is, take the number one role when you think you're ready. And it's okay to wait if you don't think you're ready. Because once you take the step up, taking the step down is not a good look. So you take it once and then it's all on you. And that's why when you know you're ready, go with it. And if you don't think fundraising, you can do it, or you think that it might be a bit hard or whatever, then take another role, find a fantastic CFO in business, learn and go, I want fundraising experience, get it there in a safe environment, and then step up.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And I was probably going to come on and ask you for some advice for future CFOs, but I think you've just encapsulated that nicely. And Luke's been walking around for the last sort of 20 minutes, probably getting us to try and wrap up. And we've got so many things we haven't covered, so we'll probably just have to have you back another time, I think. But thank you very much.
Thanks, Vineta.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.